this session is a panel discussion on innovating for growth. That's the subject. And I will now invite the panelists onto the stage one by one. Oscar Wendell, partner Metal International USA. If you could please make your way to the stage, Oscar. Dr. Shahid Mahmood, Chairman and CEO, Interactive Group of Companies. Mr. Asif Akram, Chief Operating Officer, Systems Limited. Ms. Naz Khan, Chief Strategy Officer, K Electric. Sardar Abu Bakr, Chief Finance and Digital Officer, Mobiling Microfinance Bank. All right, so you brought your fan club along, Sardar. Good show. All right. Then we have the moderator, Sajid Aslam, Regional Lead Public Affairs, Asia Pacific for ACCA. So as you can see, a stellar lineup. So in order to not eat into the panel's time, I'm going to hand it right over to Sajid.
Thank you very much. It's important to really wake up everybody while we are coming back from the lunch. It's a difficult task, but we will try to keep you awake. And we do expect some questions after 45 minutes within the session. So we are keeping 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. So just make sure you write your question, and then we will try to use that one. Just going back to the fundamentals, in a 500 years history of the world, if we study, there are 8 key variables which define the economic growth of any country. And the baseline starts with the education. The second part, when the education leads to innovation, and then the innovation leads to economic output, and that economic output leads to the competitiveness of that country or that output or the products and services. Then it brings out the global share within the global trade, so share of that country in the global trade. And then it brings to the sixth one, which is a military power to really defend the country and create a deterrent so the people, other countries should not be taking over the resources of that country. And then the efficient capital markets, that's the 7th one. And if we achieve these 7 variables, or if we progress on these 7 variables, that's bring the currency of that country as a reserve currency. And that's where the game changes. Then you have got a liquidity available to really fund everything. So these are the 8 key economic variables, or these are the 8 variables over the 500 years of the history, the way it studies how the countries or the regions, they have progressed economically as well as from a human development perspective. So these are the variables which we have to evaluate where we stand today in terms of Pakistan. And the area which we are going to discuss is the innovation. Yesterday we discussed the talent, which is linked with the education, and how that talent can lead to the innovation for the country growth. So I'll open the session with a very open-ended question. So how the innovation is directly linked with the economic growth. So that's something which we would like to get some perspective. And I think we start from Oscar, and then we will move to the next, right? Oscar, if you can share your perspective, how the innovation is linked with the growth.
What is innovation and how is it defined? It is not just about doing things in a more complex way or in a new way, but actually making you more competitive, and that usually means doing more with less and using resources better. And the same thing with growth. In its essence, it is about creating more value in the marketplace that is transacted. I think this is often lost in buzzwords when you talk about innovation, that it's simply a new, more complex way of doing things, and there's going to be value delivered at the end of the road. But at some point, innovation needs to lead to more business and profits. And I think from a country perspective, this is very important to keep in mind, but also for organizations. I'll let you...
Thank you. Oscar, Shahid.
I would take innovation in a manner that there are, like you said, the 7 variables, but the variables are now social, environmental, and economic. So if you take these variables and see how, like General Zubair just said, we will be 8 billion people. 8 billion people with the same Earth's resources who better manages these resources and puts them into play as a supply and demand is where the innovation kicks in, for which they need the basic infrastructure, and those who have thought it through with the infrastructure, because technology doubling every 12 months allows you that pace to understand the content or the input that is coming from the 8 billion. 5 billion people are connected all the time. And this is where innovation comes. Who can manage his resources better so the demand and supply chain works in the productive economic way? This is the shortest way of defining it. I can elaborate more as we go along.
Asif.
All right. So I'll give another perspective to it. We always try and match innovation with technology somehow in our minds, that innovation will come when there is technology. But for us as a country, we have to take innovation as a mindset and a culture. And unless we start addressing those things, innovation for growth is a tough ask. Innovation is also a perception about us as a country from others, from outside. Right now, unfortunately, we are not seen as an innovative nation when it comes down to this aspect. It's not because we are technologically weak, it's that culture and mindset and that people aspect that we are still lacking upon, and we need to keep working on it. We don't have a supply side issue. Our population, 60-70% is young population, and that's to our advantage. What we need to start seeding is innovation at an education at a lower level when we are coming out of colleges and schools, and then taking into organizations. And I'll elaborate that more, how we've done it at systems and how we see that this go. But I want to differentiate innovation from technology. I don't want us to say it's a technology that drives innovation.
Thank you. Abubakar.
No, I completely agree. I think first thing we have to do is kind of take the myth out of the word innovation. Okay, innovation definitely has to mean something really, really cool and difficult to understand. Or agar aasan cheez hai, that means it's not innovative. And you know, Pakistan is at a crossroads. I think you've probably been hearing this for several decades now. Various speakers come in at various points in time and they say Pakistan ek bahut crossroads pe hai. So we definitely need to be innovative now as we speak, and it can be simple solutions. So I'll just want to highlight 2 or 3 areas where I think we can really get to it. When we talk about innovation for growth, we can either play with the economy we have, or we can try and find new sustainable revenue streams. The average tax GDP ratio for any sector is 5 to 7%. So jitna wo sector kamata hai, uska 7% goes to tax. In agriculture, it's less than 1%. Now, I am not at all advocating that the common man farmer be burdened with tax. But come on, at the provincial level, if we were to take the agri income tax GDP ratio to 7%, that's ₹1 trillion per annum. Why can't we do it? Our curriculums now, they need to be moving at laser sharp speed. It's either up to us to accept things that are happening or deny it. There is strong evidence to suggest that last year Pakistanis made, ab to shayad paise gwa rahe honge, but they made about 100 billion rupees in crypto, in digital currency. Where's the capital gains tax on that? So we can either say that last year no one in this room was using Binance, or actually accept that a lot of people sitting in corporates day and night were using the Binance app to buy crypto and digital currency. It's up to us. And if we were to put a 15-20% tax on that, you would suddenly get to a much bigger figure. Just 2 more quick points I want to make, and then I'm sure we'll follow it up as we go along. It costs us about 20 billion rupees just to print cash every year in this country. Now, again, I'm not talking about fuel subsidies and our existing economy कि उसी में खेलना है, उसको टैक्स ज़्यादा लगा दें, उसको टैक्स कम कर दें. I'm talking about new streams. We must find ways to promote the SME sector to get into financial inclusion. नहीं आएंगे SME sector financial inclusion में, वो घबराते हैं टैक्स लग जाएगा उन पे. We need to answer that question. And if you look at the model that South Korea has done, where they were given tax breaks for 3 to 5 years, encouraging them to get into the tech sector. Well, now SME is the backbone of any economy. And I think just the last point I'll mention at the outset is that when we talk about our curriculums and we talk about continuing education, the role we need to play as industry and working with academia is to talk about where are we investing in NFTs? Where will Pakistan be on the metaverse in 10 years? How will we monetize this opportunity? We shouldn't just talk about Web 3.0 बहुत cool hai. We should say, are we encouraging our younger generation, which is really our asset, to learn these new capabilities? And I would actually encourage कि हमारे जो BISP program है, एहसास program है, नाम जो भी दे दें, वो मर्जी है आप. But that needs to also go into upskilling now and continuing
Now,
development.
Thank you, Abu Bakr. Nas, innovation and link of growth.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think all the points made are all very appropriate. I would also say that I think the mindset is a really important element. And so to think that there are some people that are innovative and others are not, I think that's also incorrect. So, because then you sort of take the control away and say that I can't be innovative. And that's wrong. So I think educating people at a younger age to be able to see things differently, to be able to challenge the status quo. So I think Asif is absolutely right when he talks about it's not technology. It is even in your business process re-engineering. It's being able to see that how can I do this process separately, right? It's understanding the resources that you have and making the most of those. It's understanding that this is a company, deconstructing that and saying, so this company is, I have so much fleet, I have so much manpower, I have so much, just seeing what is it, what are those tangible and intangible resources that you have. And once you understand that, then you can, I think differently and try to make the most of these as well.
No, thank you, Naz. I have a follow-up question, but it's a yes-no question, right? It's a yes-no question, and that's very Pakistan context. There are two types of nations, the one which innovate, who create something. But there are people who adopt that innovation as well, right? And there's a third type which neither innovate nor adopt. Where we stand, are we the nation who adopt something which is innovated by somebody else? Shahid sir, we'll start with you. Oscar, we will just excuse you because it's a very Pakistan-specific culture.
I would add another option there. We are masters at jugaad engineering.
Yep.
I think we are very innovative, but we've not been streamlined in that process.
Structure.
No accountability, no standardization, but the amount of work, you call an electrician or a plumber to your house, complex wiring, complex plumbing, he has never seen it. In an hour, he'll fix the problem and go. You go to the Western nations, that'll require thousands of dollars to fix. So that is the brain we have. What we haven't done, it's streamlined. So I don't think it's a yes/no question. Sorry, apologies for that. I think it's that standardization and accountability that is missing in that.
Abu Bakr.
Sajid, just to take your point, they say there are three types of people. The people who make things happen, the people who watch things happen, and the people who wonder what happened, right? So I really think that we have some of the most innovative people in the world, and I, because of this, see great opportunity if we're able to harness it in the right way.
No, thank you. Naz.
I just say a yes, we're innovative.
We are innovative. So I think if you look at the nation and the journal consensus, and if you look at people in this room and in journal we work with, we are innovative people. And I think something which Shahid also alluded towards, jugaad, the word, like temporary fixes which we do, and not go for a structure or standardization, do not look from a scalability and repeatability perspective. We fix it, we move on. Next time we go, we fix it in a different way, and we still move on. Oscar, you want to add something?
I like the comment there on the electrician. There's the Parkinson's law. It's not that commonly known, but it states that all work expands or expands to the resources that is available to the job at hand. And I remember when I was doing my military service in the civil services, uh, there were more administrators than people that were actually doing the job. And I think that when you have resource constraints, you become very innovative in doing more with less. And in that sense, I'm sure that Pakistan is very innovative, and I've seen that with many examples.
No, very, very good comment. Scarcity is something which force you to innovate, and I think that's a very good comment there. Shatsa, based on your background and all that, what options, and just following up on the Oscar as well, what options as a country or as a nation we may have for innovation given all the constraints and opportunity we see in today's world?
I was very pleased to hear the first two speakers, and I must compliment Nutshell and Asfar and Martin Dowd, who bring us all together every year so that we can have this brainstorming. So the two panelists in the morning from the government side, both were very practical. Miftah Saab said we should be exporting 10% of whatever industry we do, and then Sherry Rahman was very focused on the environmental impact that we are having. Now, as a nation, when you ask this question and where innovation can come in, I think Pakistan needs to set its perspective. We may not be able to reach the 10% export, but what we can do is considerably subsidize ourselves from imports. Subsidize means reverse working on what we have on ground. We understand that the world population is moving. We are adding 1 billion people every 10 to 12 years. We understand that the resources that we have on the earth are limited. We know that Pakistan will have water shortage and crisis by 2040. We know where the energy stands because of the way it's being addressed right now. So when you look at sustainability, I believe that we have to encourage, and this is where innovation comes in from a technology perspective, because we have technologies today that allow us to do data mining in a different way, and we can do and improve on how we manage the Earth's resources that are available within the geographical bounds of Pakistan. Let me further elaborate that. For sustainable living, you're primarily addressing 6 things. First is food. So when we know that we are going to be water constrained in the next 30 years, we need to look at crops and urban farming in such a way that consumes least amount of water. We cannot lose the water, and so we need to look at its practicality and how we use it. And then we are the 5th largest nation of the world. We will be around 400 million people in the next 75 years. We are already 240. We generate a lot of waste. That waste has value. How you manage that waste is your next focus area. How we are blessed with energy resources, may they be from hydel to solar to wind, we need to go into alternate energy, because it is energy that will drive the future technologies where we are moving into the digital age. Once we have these 3 key areas focused on, we then need to look at mobility, because if we are to be champions on our exports, we need to be very wary of our carbon footprint. And that carbon footprint, under the prevailing thermal emissions and other emissions that we have, we need to work backwards. So when you put these 4 together, they have a lot of technology, IoT, data mining, whatever you want to call it, it's all there, and then they are regional specific. We are blessed as a nation where we have the plains of Balochistan, which is 44% of Pakistan, but 7 or 8% of the population base, with technology and things that are coming in, how we manage the water, how we manage the waste, how we manage the energy, how we manage products that are availing us to do sustainability. All of this becomes new clusters. So I give the next example. There was a question asked, are you inclined towards CPEC? I think CPEC is our lifeline, not just as a road, but CPEC gives us that opportunity that we have 1,000 kilometers of coastal area where 9 submarine cables are landing. So we are definitely connected in a manner that no other nation can be. And that CPEC pulls that whole cable up. I'm now looking at an optical fiber backbone. So if you have digital connectivity, where from the current 10 megabit use that we call as great bandwidth, we move to 400 to 600 because you will need 6,000 in the next 50 years, we move to energy that is cost effective, and we do urban farming and clusters on the CPEC, not like the GT road, but planned clusters where social living allows innovation. I think we can do it, and the numbers will dramatically change, and we really don't have to be dependent on exports, because when you will reduce your import structure, because what are you dependent on? It's food subsidies and other things that we're importing in fuel. If you take those out of the equation, we are positive, and we become that 5th market in the world for people to come in and try and be more innovative so that we can be more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahid Sahab. So I think sustainability, approach, structure, cluster, we can't do everything. We have to really prioritize that and put a structure and accountability around it and take that approach, which is quite integrated the way you have really referred to. Now, there's a bigger question. So we can have a structure, we can have a cluster identified, we can have a prioritization. And that takes us to the next level, execution. Now, this execution, like we picked up, the innovation is not about the technology. Innovation is about the mindset and the culture which it's nurtured. So, Oscar, the question for you, and you are an author for the book at the same time, how this culture and organization design as an organization or at a country level, how that culture or design can help us to innovate and execute?
Well, I think that being aware of what the obstacles to innovation is very important, because there's always risk with change. Innovation always requires change. And who is incentivized to take this risk? It's rarely the people at the top, and even in organizations broadly, the ones that are suggesting it will be suggesting change that may not benefit those at the top. So this is something that requires a lot of awareness and how to go about having this in organizations, and I think that's usually why smaller organizations are more successful with innovation, because they don't have the same hierarchies that will be disrupted. And you find that a lot with technology companies. It's not random that the most innovative companies tend to be small startups.
So if I understand correctly, so we are talking about understanding the obstacle and the beneficiary of status quo there.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
And then that's where we have to start working on to create a culture which can help us execute.
And this is extremely difficult in large organizations, because the status quo, it's highly incentivized to keep that status quo. Of course, and that's in all cultures.
And I'm sure that that's applicable to the country level at the same time. So if the obstacle are incentivizing some people, so that's also become the same structure.
I think there's a very good expression that goes, the obstacle is the way, and the obstacle is the opportunity. Because that's where you can innovate.
Yeah.
I mean, where organizations have obstacles, you have an opportunity to jump in that space and be competitive.
Thank you, Oscar. And that brings me to Asif. Asif, you have really, if you look at the Systems Limited is a great case study from Pakistan, a very successful organization. But we have got one Systems Limited. We don't have 10 Systems Limited in Pakistan. So what you have done differently within the same culture, structure, with the same people in the same country, where we have got Systems Limited, but how people can replicate that example and create the similar organizations.
Thanks, Ajit. I think I want to remove a myth today, which we all fall in, that Pakistan has a talent supply issue. I think I hear this every day, that we don't have enough talent, talent is leaving, we don't have good skills in technology, in finance, and everywhere. I think it's a myth, and let me just prove it, because it's been proven already. We at Systems Limited were able to hire 2,400 technology professionals just in 2021. This is 200 people a month. Now, they all came from Pakistan. They all came from the universities and the organizations here in Pakistan. And we continue in the first half of 2022, we've added another 1,000 people. Now, where did they all come from? We became a company which was 1,500 people probably in 2019 to 5,500 people right now as we speak in the mid-2022. Yes, not everybody is a superstar. So to Indian companies, everybody is a superstar, everybody is a rock star. We all come from organizations. Do you have everybody who's a rock star and a superstar? So I always say we have this tendency, and I'll link it back to innovation, of looking at the glass half empty. We got to start looking at the glass half full. And many of us have worked with Eastern European colleagues in technology, Indian colleagues in technology, and I'll cover technology more because that's my background. I find the Pakistani skills to be at par or sometimes even better. Why are we always saying we have a supply issue? Why are we not replicating what some of us have been able to do in this country? And when I make this case, I'm making it with real numbers to all of you. Yes, HEC is HEC, like any other organization in other countries as well. We have curriculums to follow. But why isn't large-scale training institutes being set up around Polytechnique? HCL and Wipro in India run 16 to 20 Polytechnique centers every year. HCL enrolls 16,000 to 20,000 people every year for a 3 to 6 months curriculum. And then they join HCL or other companies. They are trained in technology and non-technology. We always say, oh, government is not giving us enough supply, government is not putting enough students. So I had this discussion with LIIBS, and I asked them, how many computer science graduates join LIIBS every year? And the answer was 150. 150. It may have changed now, but this is a year or 2 years back. Is that enough for us? The answer is no. Is that enough for us? The answer is no, because we are in that scale discussion which is limiting us from a mindset perspective. Innovation is all mindset. We have a 40% new company every year. Iteration, hiring. Look at what happened to that culture. So 4 out of 10 people are new every year. You can't even know who they are. But that's how the scale comes. So you build the organizational processes, which we're not probably are halfway into that journey. But you do it through innovative things, which includes technology. Yeah, you got to put digitization in, you got to put systems in, but it includes putting the leadership in place that is able to do that. Now, your final point that you made, why don't we have 10 systems? And I'd like us to have 100 of them. It's that scale fear, I call it, that the SATE has. They are fearing the scale because the control loses. The CEO doesn't know 5,500 people. They don't even know who's going to get hired tomorrow.
No,
but our mindset is limited because we want to keep scale. Sorry.
No, I think that's the punchline.
मेरी आपसे request होगी, please participants जो पीछे के seats available हैं in the middle of the tables, तो please आप लोग आके join कर लें. Thank you.
On the fear of scale, and I think that's an important element which we need to highlight. Do we have that fear in this room as well? Because we are a very representative of the current culture and society and the businesses in this one. I think that's one of a takeaway. But interestingly, you picked up on that innovation. Processing 200 hiring in a month itself require innovation and standardization and the processings and the criteria, and most importantly, the empowerment to really hire those kind of people.
Indian companies are doing 1,000 a month.
Yep.
5,000 a month. They're the same people.
No, very true. Very true.
If we haven't seen that, we're missing something. So, again, this is not climbing Mount Everest, by the way. This is getting it right at the. Is it perfect? No. 20% may not be the best. So what?
No, thanks. I think I'll build upon something which Shahid Saab picked up in a very initial stage, that for innovation from an infrastructure perspective, we are talking about the bandwidth and the processing power. There's another area which is very important. It's affordable energy and availability of that energy. So Naz, if you look at from your perspective, how this energy or innovation within the energy around the world and how you compare that with Pakistan at this stage.
So before we just do that, let me just comment on what Asif was saying. Just a couple of things. When he's talking about that there isn't any dearth of talent, and I completely agree with that. I think what there is there is a dearth of leadership, because you have the talent available, but it needs to be guided, it needs to be honed, and you need the leadership to be able to pick this talent up. It's the uncut diamond. You need to know that this is it, and you need to be able to take it forward. That we are, I feel that's something that we lack. When you speak about energy and innovation, I think that's probably one of the sectors where you've seen the most amount of innovation, actually. You're seeing, customer preferences changing, you're seeing people move towards renewable, you're seeing technology disruptions within the sector, and because of that, even utility models have been disrupted globally. In Pakistan alone, although we have a sector where KE is the only private sector company and the rest is all still government. So it's a very heavily government vested and controlled sector. But where you're seeing, for example, on the affordability side, with the progress in PVs and on the wind side, and you're seeing prices come down within 10 years, they've dropped significantly, so that now renewables, solar and wind has become a real option. If I look at net metering within Pakistan now, the regulator allowed this. Do you know that there are now over 500 megawatts worth of net metering in the country? This is net metering. And net metering is just those people who can do net metering are 1 megawatt and under. Anything above that is beyond, people that may have put up solar or wind. So 500 megawatts, and it is constantly coming in, because as grid prices continue to increase and subsidies are eliminated, this price of electricity is going to continue to go up, but you have renewable resources and they're indigenous and they're cheap now. So this has become a no-brainer. So that's one place where you're seeing innovation really play in. And the same thing you will start seeing towards the grid side. You know that the government is also looking at adding in a lot of renewables, including hydel within our power system and our energy system. So I think they're looking at by 2030, we should be getting to close to 60% in terms of renewables. That includes hydel as well, which is huge. Today, if I look at solar and wind and bagasse in Pakistan, the total installed capacity is probably 3 to 4% for Pakistan, which is really, really small. So, there's a lot of potential on this side, and that's one of the ways that you actually start bringing down the cost of electricity, which, as we know, continues to increase and will continue to increase, and it's imported. So you need to move towards this side. So that's one major area of innovation where in the energy sector.
Thank you, Naz. And if you look if we keep adding that, Abubakar, I'm coming to you now. So we have got bandwidth, if we get that, where the reference point which I drawn, the processing power, we have energy to really run and light up that infrastructure. Now we need to process transactions, the payment ecosystem, which can help us there to really capture that opportunity, or what are the constraints. So Abubakar, from your side, how you see the payment ecosystem within that innovation and how it can become an enabler or constraint for us.
I think the payment ecosystem is part of a larger context of financially including the masses of Pakistan, right? It's absolutely greatly valuable that all of us sitting in the room can use one of the payment service providers to make a payment online and pay for McDonald's. That's great. But the objective should be that we should empower the masses of Pakistan and financially include them. And I think for me, a payment integration or a lending interface or giving products to people that they can actually use to try and empower themselves should be priority number one. And I keep saying this for the SME sector. So for instance, now at Mobilink Bank, 40% of our portfolio is lending to the micro SME sector. And I was sitting with a commercial bank, I'm not going to name them, don't worry. I was sitting with a commercial bank where they said that, we have a portfolio of 1 billion rupees lending to the SME sector. And in all honesty, that's abysmal, right? 1 billion rupees to the SME sector. That's nothing, that's peanuts. And I think that's where we are trying to transform, and how do we reach the last mile? We cannot reach the last mile of Pakistanis and giving them access to finance that they need through just brick and mortar. It has to be through digital financial services. That's where we're partnering with digital distribution players. We're partnering with Daraz, Adilfi, CBA to try and reach the masses. And I think we can't ignore another very important component on this, Ajit, when we talk about financial inclusion, is diversity. I really love the conversations when we all want to speak about the importance of diversity, but if we ask the same people, how many females do you have in your management team? Then the question will come, right, what, we're working on it. We will get there eventually. So if you say, how many females do you have in your board and in your leadership positions, they'll say, well, no, it's work in progress, we have to stay at it. So what we're trying to do in terms of financial inclusion, and we've seen this from Bangladesh, that women not only empower themselves when they're empowered with financial services, they empower society. And if we are able to do that, that's what we're trying to do by giving them subsidized smartphones, giving them training and upskilling. So not just having a transactional relationship, teaching them what they can do with their business. And so many of them now are running successful businesses on their phones. And I think this is something that we really have to encourage. I think the last point I'll make, Sajid, is that at Mobilink Bank and at a country level as well, I think the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenges when it comes to innovation is three things for me. One is ego. So when ego creeps in at a state level or at an organizational level, you're doomed. You don't see it immediately, but 2 to 3 years down the road, your organization will start seeing cracks. And ego means when we feel that, I cannot learn anything new. So I cannot get a new idea coming in from the wider organization or the wider economy. The other is fear. It's like religion. People fear something that they don't understand. So it's really important that we are able to put across our points according to the value we can create for Pakistan. And the third thing that I think Mobilink Bank, what we're trying to do is empower the masses. Financial inclusion cannot be about a niche segment. If we want the Uber and Careem drivers, if we want the Food Panda home chefs to flourish, our solutions must focus on them. And I think that has to be a priority when we sit in the public and private sector.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think I'll take one recommendation from each and then we open for questions. So we will be coming back. Any one top recommendation how innovation can be embedded within the country or in the culture, or maybe what you feel is the top priority we should look at this stage? One, very quick one. Oscar.
Well, very broadly and generally, picking up on the need for education to inspire innovation. Education, to a large extent, is learning how to think, and how to think about innovation is being open to change, being open to diversity, and also, to a large extent, innovation is about discipline. It's not just about knowing what is the better way of doing something, but actually sticking to it, having incremental improvements over long periods of time. That requires stamina, and I think that comes down to education as well.
education, based on yesterday's conversation, it's not only the formal education, it's skilling, upskilling, reskilling, higher education, continuous learning. So that's the context. And taking responsibility for self-development, I think that's also one of a key area which identified yesterday. Shahid sir.
I would say that ground rules need to be set as when the state has to execute and encourage innovation, it should focus on infrastructure and let the private sector then utilize that infrastructure, and it has to be at a standard. You can't expect that you have an infrastructure that gives you 10 megabits when the norm in the fourth industrial revolution is 400 megabits per second is what you need to really start working. So if we get the state to focus on how they would provide the infrastructure, the rest will happen automatically.
So I think good thing is a standard and setting that expectation at a country level. So when we say we have a bandwidth, so everybody knows it's what bandwidth we are talking about, right? Asif.
So I think we have to start firstly recognizing innovation and incentivizing it. Currently, we don't do that. These are two things. So the 10x concept needs to start coming up. When somebody is coming with a normal idea versus an innovative idea, it has to have a weightage of 10x at all levels, not just government, private, schools, because it's that mindset and culture that needs to change. Unless we do recognize and incentivize, it's difficult. And the second thing I keep saying, innovation is not just technology. These are two things. If we can recognize, I think we are on the path.
10x mindset, and it's not technology, it's a mindset. Great.
I just think three things from my side. One is at overall country level, we really need a digital execution plan. Digital policies are great, but it's really time we join forces to say, how do we execute on the digital agenda? And I would love for a public and private collaboration where we're then following up progress on this every quarter. That's one. The second is invest in the youth. They will develop products and platforms for us that are more valuable than the total value of our IMF loan. And I think the third thing that I would say in terms of innovation is that if we are able to do more with less as a mindset, and I think we spoke about that at the start, and inculcate in our youth, in our leadership, in our organizations, where we're not the victim, we have empowerment to decide our destinies. If that as a mindset we can inculcate in our behaviors, we will find solutions to the most difficult problems with very scarce resources as well.
Thank you.
So I think that I think at the educational level, I think we really need a rewrite of our curriculums. I think this whole rote learning, very, there's just content and knowledge. I think we really need to focus on critical thinking, which is how you're taught in many of the countries abroad as well. So the critical thinking element needs to be brought up. Your education system, and even outside the education system, you are not rewarded for failure. You are actually, it is treated as, it's really treated very, very negatively if you fail in something. And that should not be the case, right? So and it's even something as simple as you want to take a gap year, you want to explore something. Exactly. If you haven't gotten from here to the next step, within this period of time, it's not the norm. And so this thinking needs to change. And finally, I think within the corporate sector, I think less regulation. Really, you need to keep government out, and there needs to be less regulation, and let the private sector just provide that enabling environment, and the sector will innovate and come up with solutions.
Thank you, Naz, and thank you, everyone. Now we can take some questions from the audience. If you can raise your hand. This gentleman at the back, somebody can bring. Please state your name and organization and who you want to address your question to.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Omar Zahid. I'm with S&P. A question for everyone. I mean, everyone's talked about innovation, what you're trying to do. But I was reading up on this a couple of days ago. Some of the biggest innovations in the world that I've seen, that has come through state-funded programs. I think when we talk about GPS, that was a US government-led program, and that was disseminated to everyone, and we now see the uses of it across the board, be it on the private sector, be it, you know, missiles, technology, army, whatever it is. GPS is at the core of it. You know, what it seems like, you know, there's a lot of work going on, but it's fragmented. You know, the approach is being taken by organizations, it's fragmented with
So
the approach to
your question, please.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Coming to it, what are the plans? What is it that you guys, as the leaders in Pakistan, looking to do in terms of collaborating with the state, with the governments, coming up with the programs, coming up with that innovation that can be utilized at a small scale, at a large scale, which can benefit the masses? Thank you.
So let me just say what we are doing at KE, right? You mentioned the word collaboration, and that I think is one of the key things for innovation as well. Your innovation is best done collaboratively. So while we are working on things internally, we wanted to know what it is that's happening within the energy sector across Pakistan and even outside. We launched an innovation challenge for the same purpose, to just see what it is that's happening within the energy sector. We went to universities, all the universities across the country, visited 20 plus, but went to, wrote to more, to startups, researchers, and basically asked them, in 3 categories, and we asked them, you tell us what it is that you can do for us, and they were linked to SDG goals 7, 11, which relate to energy and sustainable cities, because that's what's important, and it's important for the masses as well. And the plus was there for anything related to a utilities function, your customer experience, etc. In addition, we gave challenge statements that we have as a utility, solve this problem for us. And very well received. The idea was that if we can get, and we want to see what people are doing, if we can get some idea, even one idea, that helps us deliver better to our customers, makes electricity cheaper, makes our processes better, or makes KE a better place, it actually, it's a business imperative, and you can embed that within the system. If a company like KE benefits, the entire power sector benefits, because there are so many other discos where you can replicate this. So and we are actually going through that process right now, and some very exciting things that have come up from there. So that's what we're doing at our end.
Thank you, Das. Just one thing, just picking up on that question. From this forum, from Nutshell conferences, there multiple times people have raised one recommendation for government, the change in the PEPRA rules, so it can include the SME sector and young organizations who do not have a restriction for 10-year history and the bank guarantees and all that. So once that spending start coming into that area, the SME, to the startups, I think that's also something which can fuel. So we can can also emphasize on that recommendation again, which can help the entire sector, that where it become more inclusive. Right now, the PEPRA rules are quite restrictive in terms of how we can support that. Question? Sir, please.
This is a question for that gentleman on the end there.
Oscar.
I believe that you are one of the organizers of GTEx in Dubai, and I was wanting to ask you what opportunities you felt could be innovators for growth for Pakistani executives and companies that might want to consider being at GTEx, which is a huge event. If you could perhaps just say what might be beneficial.
On what Naz was saying about collaboration, I think Dubai is such a great opportunity for Pakistan to find collaboration and opportunities across all sectors, and this is what GITEX is about, to work both with private companies and with governments across all of the Gulf and the wider MENA region, and not just in technology, but also in creative economies, where we will, I think there's with technology as well, with entertainment, there's a lot of growth opportunities, and of course a lot of innovation that spills over across all sectors.
Thank you, Oscar. We have a question from that side. Yep, if you can get a mic there.
Hi, my name is Aisha Sarvi. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Coca-Cola for Pakistan, Afghanistan. First of all, congratulations to USFR for always keeping us on point with the ESG agenda, and to this esteemed panel for keeping the collaboration effort, at the center. I have a comment and a question. We built a plastic road in Islamabad on Ataturk Avenue with 10 tons of plastic, and we'd like to welcome that collaboration with private and public sector partners. I do feel that the government works better with private sector, and I think that I would kind of a little disagree that perhaps they need to speed up. I feel that sometimes governments are ahead of the game, particularly in things like recycle, RPET, and in a few things they need our support. So I think a forum like this is fantastic, and I think the question to the panel is, how do we do more practical things like 1 kilometer of plastic paved roads? We now need to scale it up across our national highways. Thank you.
You want to direct that question, or okay, you want to?
General initial response on work. I think it's also important for us, just taking on your point, as you alluded to, is how the private sector also interacts with the public sector. In all fairness, sometimes the private sector is very high-handed when approaching the public sector as well. We come in with our suits and ties, and we don't necessarily always work our way through the organizations that public sector leadership has. We go directly to the top and say, I want this done. So in all honesty, it's a bit of both. We've actually seen, and I'm very vocal, but we've actually seen a lot of success with State Bank of Pakistan. The banking on equality policy, I think, is a piece of guidance everyone in this room should read, and I hope all sectors implement that kind of diversity agenda, where they've mandated female representation on the board, on managements, creating products using design thinking that serve the diversity agenda. And we were able to do that with them collaboratively. They listened. I think so. There is also something from our side, from the private sector, that needs to be changed in our thinking, because in all honesty, it's human psyche. If we continue to just bash someone, well, you're not going to get through. That doesn't work. Of course, there's the other side of the coin as well. But I think collaboration is the key. No one organization is going to be able to do plastic roads or, across Pakistan. If we open our doors technologically through APIs and commercially through partnerships, and we are able to say to people, there is a business case of solving the problems of masses. The private sector companies who want to do that will make trillions, because this is a country of 220 million people. If you solve the problems of masses through innovation, there is an innate business case in it. And I think if we work on that agenda with public-private sectors, we will continue to see some progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Abubakar. We have a time for one question. Khatun, if we can go to that woman back. Aapke piche.
जी सैयदा फ़िज़ा शकील CEO एक्ट मैनेजमेंट आप सब हाउस की इजाज़त से मैं उर्दू में सवाल करना चाहूँगी ताकि जो सब सोए हुए वो ज़रा सा जाग जाएं। सवाल मेरा ये है जनाब, हम SMEs की बात कर रहे हैं, हम बहुत सारी ऐसी बातें कर रहे हैं जो ग्राउंड पे हो रही होंगी, लेकिन मैं दास ने बेख्याल ओवर रेगुलेशन का जिक्र किया था गवर्नमेंट साइड से। इस इन्वायरमेंट में ख़वातीन की इंक्लूजन नहीं हो पा रही। बहुत सारी ख़वातीन जो कुछ करना भी चाहती हैं, वो एक बैंक अकाउंट 26 अथॉरिटीज़ की रैटिफिकेशन के बाद भी अगर ना खुलवा सकें तो बिज़नेस कैसे करेंगी? और इंक्लूजन जो मेरे ख़्याल है माशरे की लेवल पे या तरक्की की लेवल पे होनी चाहिए, वो कैसे होगी? शुक्रिया।
And your question is addressed to Nas. Yep, and then.
I mean, what can I say? It's an appropriate question. You're right. It's really difficult. बहुत मुश्किल है. I remember I used to previously be in the financial sector, and I used to ask also जब ये FATF का भी सब चल रहा था, and I used to wonder कि जिसके पास एक म्यूचुअल फंड अकाउंट है, जिसके पास 5 बैंक अकाउंट हैं, जिसके पास इंश्योरेंस का है, अब हर जगह आप जाके you're doing the same thing again and again and again, and I just wondered, why can you not have one central database and make it simple for everyone, right? And you control it, and it's much easier for you to report it to FATF. यहाँ पे हर जगह आपने लोग deploy किए हुए, लोगों के पास लोग हैं नहीं, to do this, and everyone is doing it at different levels, and you're auditing it, and some are failing it, and some are passing it. So all I can do is I can just agree with you on that. I just feel that's why I said that I think that it just needs to be facilitated a lot more, particularly on the financial side.
Abubakar, you want to add?
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say कि अब थोड़ी सी हमारे पे भी जिम्मेदारी ये लागू होती है कि हम अवेयरनेस दें अब आपका जो आसान डिजिटल अकाउंट है आपको बैंक ब्रांच विज़िट करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है अकाउंट खोलने के लिए आपका जो रास्त आईडी है आपका फ़ोन नंबर है आपको बैंक ब्रांच विज़िट करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है अकाउंट खोलने के लिए अब हम मर्द हजरात पे भी ये लागू होता है कि ख़वातीन को अपने नाम पे अकाउंट खोलने दें कुछ नहीं होता फ़ोन रखने दें सब्सक्रिप्शन उनके नाम पे कुछ नहीं होता दूसरों के लिए और सोचते हैं लेकिन फिर हमें जो अपनी बेटियों से सबसे ज़्यादा प्यार होता है मेरी 6 साल की बेटी आई वांटेड टू हैव द बेस्ट लाइफ पॉसिबल नाउ सो नाउ दोज टूल्स आर अवेलेबल एंड आई थिंक इट्स वो जिससे कहते हैं ना कि अगर ख़वातीन को इनेबल करना है एम्पावर करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है उसमें जो आपको मेल चैम्पियंस चाहिए ना दैट बिकम्स अ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टूल अब हमारे पास फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन के लिए बैंक अकाउंट खोलने के लिए आसानियाँ दस्तयाब हैं अब हम सब का काम है कि हम उसकी अवेयरनेस करें और वो पार्टनरशिप्स करें जिसके ज़रिए ये मैसेज हम दूर तक पहुंचा सकें
I just want to add one thing. एक तो awareness वाली बात I wanted to just echo what you said, Abu Bakr, is very important. But एक तो बैंक अकाउंट खोलना है दूसरा वर्कफोर्स में भी उनको वापस लेके आना है जैसे हम लोगों ने एक रीइग्नाइट प्रोग्राम स्टार्ट किया जिसके अंदर जो women घर वापस गई because of marriage, because of family reason, because of child birth and all that, they have to take care of the family. उनको work from home and flexible hours की facility दी जाए क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी अब अवेलेबल है सबके पास अवेलेबल है और घरों में भी अवेलेबल है and I think that is something we need to bring back into this culture is that I was reading an article and it could be wrong in Punjab 23% of the medical graduate women doctors go into practice 77 don't go could be wrong data but that's directional
Yep. No,
and it's a huge thing so bringing back the workforce through flexibility is the second thing which we've started at Systems of many other organizations doing banks need to do it other organizations need to do it
Thank you Asif thank you very much and thank you very much for wonderful perspectives and conversation and audience thank you very much for that
is it possible the last quick question here
please Moin very quick
Moin Bartley जी तो देखें जी की infrastructure telecom and electricity Nas Khan and then PTCL से Khurram Shiraz साहब so this is not our energy sector is not viable and we don't seem to have a 10-year government plan to make it viable. And even on the telecom side, the investment that is needed is not happening, and the edge we have, we seem to be losing it. So if the government is not moving ahead with making these sectors viable and having a good structure in place, what can the companies do to try and make that happen?
Shahid, you want to pick up?
It's a very difficult choice to make. On one hand, we always frown when the IMF structure comes in or the discussion on IMF come in. I think what we really need to do is revisit the financial models and see what we have been doing in the past 75 years and what technology now allows you to do vis-a-vis these infrastructures. So if a country like Philippines can earn from freelancing $30 billion and we as Pakistanis can only earn 3, we need to understand if India can do $153 billion, they are doing it from the same infrastructure that we are talking about. We have the basic infrastructure is in play. Now the question is, do we allow that infrastructure to be in the control of foreign entities? Because then comes the question of cyber sovereignty and who is actually using and profiling your human data and utilizing it in which form. It was shocking for me to see during COVID that 47% of Pakistan's bandwidth was being consumed in watching Netflix. Now, this in itself tells you where we need to fix what. So it's a collective effort, and we, if we want to be, and we are, and we believe that we can be this proud nation, we just need to revisit and sit across the table and allow the public sector to understand what will that infrastructure. It's always been a debate. We have my dear friend here in the audience. Every time the tax department wanted to tax, it was always the mobile phones. Okay, and whatever calculations we did, this is Paktel, the good old mobiling days, we would say, why do you tax it? Ask us how much revenue do you want the people to generate using the tool, and then look at that tax. But nobody looked at the other tax, always looked at this tax. So we need to structure it right, because technology today allows you to move in that fashion, where if you do not use the resource that we have, which is the youth and the educational resource that we have, and train them to be in the metaverse or augmented reality world, if you have the speed and this, you have enough resources in this country to generate the billions of dollars that we will require. I think systems is one very classic example. If they are hiring 200 people a month, this nation has the capacity to produce people if you get them allowed and connected with the right energy. Energy meaning you cannot run IT without electricity. So if the electricity is sufficient and cost effective, bandwidth is there, these kids have the capacity, and this is the beauty of this nation. The intelligence is there to be able to be the avatars of the whole world, and that will earn enough enough money for us to build that infrastructure.
Thank you.
So it's a dialogue that we have to keep.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I'm just going to add over there on the electricity part. When it's not an unsolvable problem. All I will say is that you have one privatized, you have about 10 or 11 government discos. All you need to do is privatize them. And what will it take to privatize them? That will tell you what it is you need to have a business here that flourishes as well, and that things work well. So, and are you willing to take those steps?
Thank you, Naz. I think the government and the public sector and the corporate, when we talk about, these are the reflection of the behaviors as a society we really demonstrate in everyday's dealing. So we cannot really segregate the government separate than the people, right? So it's the same people when they are sitting in a corporate side or a government side. So something which we need to fix, like Shahid picked up, is our own behavior. The first accountability starts with us. So just to close that and summarize it, so from an infrastructure perspective, if we are looking for innovation for growth, so we are talking about the bandwidth availability at the standard, the processing power, the energy availability and affordability, and the payment transaction. These are the 4 key pillars which we picked up here. From a culture perspective and from an execution perspective, there's a question around the discipline, the structure, prioritization as well, and the fear of scale. I think that's something which Asif highlighted. So these are the things which we need to really address if we are looking for the innovation and if we are looking for growth. But everything boils down to that optimism which we bring to the table, because the incentive for anybody to innovate or move or do something, that's the optimism that there's a hope at the end, there's an incentive at the end. So I think that's the important element which we have to really collaborate and make sure that optimism, that awareness exists out there, and the collective action to fix something which is not fixed today. So thank you very much, and big round of applause for everybody. Thank you.
So that was a power-packed session. Thank you very much to all our distinguished panelists. Thank you, Sajid. I will invite Asfar to please join us on the stage. And in order to present small tokens of appreciation, I would like to invite one of my favorite people, Mr. Zuhair Khalik, former president and CEO Mobilink. He's a telecom veteran. Everybody in the room knows him. He's currently the founder and general partner, Team Up Ventures. Please, a round of applause for Zuhair Saab. So first of all, I'd request Oscar to please come and collect this book on Pakistan. It will remind you of your time with us. Next up, Dr. Shahid Mahmood, Chairman and CEO Interactive Group. I think we can do a little bit better with the clapping, come on. That's better. We have to infuse energy. We still have a very high-powered session coming up, which is the closing session, so please have your tea, coffee and wake up everybody. All right, Asif Akram Saab, Chief Operating Officer, Systems Limited. One of the most dynamic female leaders in the country, Naz Khan, Chief Strategy Officer, K Electric. Let's hear it for her, please. Sardar Abubakar, Chief Finance and Digital Officer, Mobilink Microfinance Bank. And our friend, an amazing moderator, Sajid Aslam, Regional Lead Public Affairs, Asia Pacific ACCA. I think, Sajid bhai, you're going to have 2 books this time. Yes. Wonderful. Let's get together for a group photograph.